My brothers and sisters, too many of us are busy building blueprints for tomorrow while forgetting the foundation that stretches into eternity. We plan our careers, our finances, our relationships, our retirements, yet so often we fail to ask, where does eternity fit into the plans I'm making today? Life is not just about the next step, the next paycheck, or the next opportunity. Life is about eternity, and eternity is forever. Let me share with you 6 prophetic truths that will reshape how you plan for tomorrow, not just for earth, but for heaven. When we say that every tomorrow is temporary, but eternity is permanent, we are reminding ourselves of a truth that most people ignore until it is too late. Tomorrow is the space where we make our dreams, where we imagine progress, where we hope for more. Yet tomorrow is also fragile. It does not carry a guarantee, nor does it come with certainty. You may be planning your career, your wealth, your family, or your influence, but all of those things rest in a tomorrow that could disappear in a moment. Think about it. How many people have poured their entire lives into saving money for retirement, only to never live long enough to spend it? How many have sacrificed relationships, integrity, or health for tomorrow's promise, only to discover that tomorrow never gave back what it promised? That is the tragedy of putting all your hope in what is temporary. Eternity, on the other hand, is not subject to the fragile uncertainty of tomorrow. Eternity does not shift with the stock market, does not weaken with age, and cannot be destroyed by death. Eternity is the realm that outlasts everything you can see, touch, or measure. It is the permanent reality behind all temporary illusions. This means that when we are planning for tomorrow, we must hold our plans with an open hand and align them with what will last forever. If you only prepare for tomorrow, you may end up successful for a season, but bankrupt for eternity. But if you prepare with eternity in mind, even if tomorrow doesn't arrive as you imagined, you will still have invested in something that can never be taken away. The danger lies in our tendency to treat tomorrow as permanent. We anchor our identity in jobs, achievements, or possessions, believing they will carry us forever. Yet nothing we see is eternal. Businesses collapse overnight. Health deteriorates with time. Relationships break under pressure. And even the strongest bodies grow weak. We must train our hearts to ask, will this decision matter in eternity, or will it vanish like smoke in the wind? That question becomes a filter for every plan we make. It keeps us from being deceived by the temporary glow of tomorrow and refocuses us on what will truly endure. Consider an example. Imagine a young man who inherits a large sum of money. He begins to plan aggressively for tomorrow. He invests in property, builds a business empire, and throws lavish parties. He tells himself that he has finally secured his future. But in the middle of his planning, his life ends suddenly, and everything he worked for is left behind. All the buildings, all the accounts, all the recognition vanish into the hands of strangers. He had planned well for tomorrow, but failed to plan for eternity. In contrast, think of another person with far fewer resources. She spends her life using her limited means to help others, showing kindness, teaching truth, and pointing people to what lasts forever. She never owned much, but she invested in eternal seeds. Lives changed, souls touched, and hearts turned towards something greater. When she steps into eternity, her work follows her. She may not have secured tomorrow's riches, but she stored treasures in the realm that cannot fade. That example teaches us that tomorrow is like a shadow. It looks solid but disappears as the sun moves. Eternity, however, is like the mountain, immovable, unshaken, and enduring through every season. If we live for the shadow, we will always be disappointed. But if we build our lives on the mountain, every tomorrow, whether it comes or not, will simply be another step toward permanence. So when you wake up and begin to plan your day, your goals, your future, remember that tomorrow is a gift, not a promise. Use it wisely, but don't worship it. Hold it lightly because it will pass. Fix your eyes on eternity because it will remain. The wisest people are not those who secure every tomorrow, but those who anchor themselves in forever. When you grasp that truth, you will live with freedom, purpose, and peace, knowing that your life is rooted not in what fades, but in what endures. Success is one of the most powerful motivators in human life. From the moment we are children, we are told to strive, to achieve, to climb higher, and to push further. Success is celebrated in every corner of society, and those who reach the top are admired and imitated. We measure it by titles, wealth, influence, or accomplishments. But there is a hidden truth that often goes unnoticed. Success without eternity is failure in disguise. It may look shiny on the outside, but if it does not carry eternal weight, it is hollow at its core. The reason this truth is so important is because earthly success is temporary. It fades with time, and it is vulnerable to circumstances beyond our control. A company built over decades can collapse in a single economic downturn. A reputation cultivated over years can be destroyed by one mistake or one rumor. A fortune saved up through careful planning can be wiped away with a single disaster. Success, as the world defines it, has no guarantee of lasting. It is at best fragile and at worst deceptive, making us believe we have built something solid, when in fact it can vanish overnight. But eternity is different. It is not defined by trophies or applause. Eternity measures life, not by how much you achieve for yourself, but by how much you invested in what lasts beyond yourself. To succeed in eternity is to align your life with values that will never die: truth, love, faithfulness, obedience, and the impact you leave on souls that will live forever. When your definition of success is shaped by eternity, you no longer measure your life by promotions or possessions, but by purpose. The danger lies in the illusion. You can look successful to everyone else and still be a failure in the only reality that matters. You can rise to the highest office, build the largest house, or earn the loudest applause, yet step into eternity empty-handed. The question that exposes the illusion is simple. What profit is it to gain the whole world, but lose your soul? That question cuts through the glamour of temporary success and forces us to measure life by eternal standards. Think of the countless people who have achieved everything society said was success, only to feel an emptiness they could not explain. Athletes who reach the peak of their sport, but confess to loneliness. Celebrities who have fame, money, and influence, but quietly battle despair. Business leaders who built empires, but lost their families and inner peace along the way. Their lives illustrate the truth that success without eternity does not satisfy. It looks like victory, but it hides failure. Let me give you an example. Imagine two men. The first spends his entire life climbing the corporate ladder. He sacrifices his family time, his health, and even his integrity in order to be the best. At the end of his career, he is celebrated, wealthy, and powerful. But soon after retirement, his health fails. He discovers that the things he thought would bring joy now feel meaningless. He steps into eternity with nothing that can cross the line with him. The second man, however, lives a quieter life. He works faithfully, but he never becomes rich or famous. Yet he uses his time to love his family, serve his community, and live with integrity. He invests his energy in building people, showing kindness, and honoring God. When he steps into eternity, his life echoes with purpose, because what he built was not temporary, but eternal. From the world's view, the first man was more successful, but in the light of eternity, the second man was the true victor. This example shows us why redefining success is critical. Success should not be measured only by how much you own or achieve, but by how much of your life aligns with eternity's values. The applause of the world may fade, but the reward of eternity will never diminish. To build only for tomorrow is to chase shadows. To build with eternity in mind is to lay foundations that storms cannot destroy. So when you think about success, ask yourself, will this achievement carry weight beyond my lifetime? Will it matter in eternity? Or will it vanish when my days are over? If the answer is that it will not last, then it is not true success. True success is not about the size of your accomplishments, but the eternal significance of your choices. That is why success without eternity is failure in disguise. It may look like winning for now, but it is losing forever. Every moment of your life is a seed. Every word you speak, every action you take, every choice you make carries within it the power to produce fruit, not just for tomorrow, but for eternity. This truth is easy to forget in a world that constantly pressures us to look for immediate results. We want instant success, instant recognition, instant gratification. Yet the deepest realities of life do not grow overnight. They are planted in quiet moments, watered by consistency, and harvested long after the planting. That is why we must live with an eternal perspective, remembering that the seeds we plant today will bear fruit that outlives us. When you choose kindness over cruelty, you plant a seed. When you forgive instead of holding on to bitterness, you plant a seed. When you encourage someone who feels invisible, when you give generously, when you pray faithfully, these are seeds sown into the soil of eternity. They may seem small and insignificant in the moment, but no seed planted in love and truth is ever wasted. The world may not applaud, and people may not even notice. But heaven records every seed. What you do today shapes not only your tomorrow, but the forever that awaits you. The difficulty lies in the fact that planting does not always bring immediate results. Farmers understand this. They put seed into the ground, cover it with soil, and wait. They trust that the unseen process will bring life in due season. In the same way, many of the seeds we plant in this life will not reveal their harvest until eternity. You may never see the full impact of your prayers, your generosity, or your obedience while you are alive. But when you step into eternity, you will discover that those small acts were not small at all. They were eternal investments. This truth should change the way we plan for tomorrow. Instead of asking only, what can I gain tomorrow? We should also ask, what can I plant today that will still be growing in eternity? That question shifts our focus from temporary achievements to lasting legacies. Wealth, fame, and possessions will pass away, but the seeds of faith, hope, and love will bear eternal fruit. Imagine living every day with the awareness that what you do echoes forever. That awareness gives meaning to even the smallest choices. Let me illustrate this with an example. A school teacher works in a small town where few people ever leave or achieve great worldly success. From the outside, her life looks ordinary. She earns a modest salary, drives an old car, and never receives recognition beyond her classroom walls. Yet every day she sows seeds. She encourages her students when they feel discouraged. She listens to their struggles. She teaches them not just math and reading, but also honesty, perseverance, and compassion. She prays for them quietly, even though they never know it. Over the years, her students go out into the world, carrying the seeds she planted. One becomes a doctor who saves lives. Another becomes a parent who teaches kindness to their children. Another finds faith because of the values she modeled. She may never know the full extent of her influence while alive, but in eternity, she will see a harvest she could not have imagined. Her life was not measured by titles or riches, but by eternal fruit grown from seeds planted in ordinary days. This example reminds us that greatness is not found in how much we accumulate, but in how much we plant. Seeds do not always look impressive. They are small, hidden, and easily overlooked. But in the right soil, they carry life greater than themselves. The same is true for our choices. They may seem small. One kind word, one act of service, one moment of faith. But when planted with eternity in mind, they can grow into something beyond measure. Therefore, when you think about your future, remember that tomorrow is not just a destination. It is soil. and eternity is the harvest field. What you sow now is what you will reap later, both in this life and in the life to come. So plant wisely, plant faithfully, plant with eternity in your vision. For every seed you plant today, whether seen or unseen, will one day rise as eternal fruit, testifying to the life you lived and the choices you made. Tomorrow is one of the most fragile promises in existence, because in reality it is not a promise at all. We treat it as if it is guaranteed, as if the sun owes us another rise, as if our lungs are entitled to another breath. But the truth is that tomorrow is uncertain. None of us hold the keys to the future. You can plan, you can dream, you can prepare, but you cannot guarantee that you will wake up to see another day. Life itself is a vapor, brief, fleeting, and often gone before we are ready. Yet in contrast to the uncertainty of tomorrow, there is one reality that is absolutely certain: eternity. While tomorrow may or may not arrive, eternity is waiting for every single soul. It does not shift, it does not vanish, and it does not fail to arrive. That certainty makes it the most important truth to remember when we are making our choices today. Think about how much time people spend preparing for things that might never come. We save for retirement, though many never live long enough to retire. We plan vacations that illness or tragedy cancels. We build careers that can crumble with one unexpected change in the market. But eternity will not be canceled. It will not be interrupted. You may never live to see your plans fulfilled tomorrow, but you will certainly step into eternity, whether you are ready or not. That makes it urgent to live today with eternity in mind. The problem is that most people live as if tomorrow is more certain than in eternity. They postpone important choices. They tell themselves they will deal with their soul later. When life slows down, when the children are grown, when the bills are paid, when the dreams are fulfilled, they believe there will always be more time. But one day, tomorrow runs out, and there are no more chances. What seemed like delay turns into finality. That is why tomorrow is dangerous to rely on. It creates the illusion of abundance, when in fact time is slipping away. Eternity, on the other hand, does not play games. It is not a possibility. It is a guarantee. Every person, regardless of age, status, or belief, will step into it. The question is not if eternity will come, but how you will enter it. That is why the wise live with urgency. They do not waste time assuming there will always be another chance. They live today in such a way that if tomorrow never comes, they will still be ready for eternity. Consider an example. A young man in his late 20s was full of ambition. He believed he had decades ahead of him. So he made choices as though time would always be on his side. He told himself he would settle down later, take spiritual matters seriously later, and start living with purpose later. For now, he wanted to chase success, pleasure, and recognition. But one evening, while driving home, his life was cut short in an accident. Suddenly, all the tomorrows he thought were guaranteed were gone. His plans ended instantly, but eternity had just begun. Contrast that with an elderly woman who never had much by the world's standards. She lived simply, gave generously, and treated every day as a gift. She never assumed tomorrow was guaranteed, so she made choices each day that reflected eternal values: kindness, faith, integrity, and service. When her time finally came, she stepped into eternity prepared, carrying a legacy of seeds sown into countless lives. The difference between the two is not how long they lived, but how they lived in light of eternity. This example shows us that the tragedy is not in having a short life, but in having a wasted one. Life is not measured by the number of tomorrows you receive, but by what you do with the todays you are given. Tomorrow is fragile, but eternity is unshakable. That means every moment of today is an opportunity to prepare for forever. So, when you sit down with your schedule, your budget, your dreams, and your plans, do not forget this truth. Tomorrow is not promised, but eternity is certain. Live as if each day might be your last, because one day it will be. Do not wait to reconcile with someone. Do not wait to forgive. Do not wait to live with purpose. The certainty of eternity gives weight to every moment, and the uncertainty of tomorrow should give urgency to every decision. To live wisely is to plan, not just for what may come, but for what will certainly come. Eternity is waiting, so let your today be lived with forever in mind. Every person is born with dreams, desires, and ambitions. We are naturally inclined to plan for the future. Our education, our careers, our families, our finances. Planning in itself is not wrong. In fact, wisdom encourages preparation. But there is a vital truth that shapes the difference between plans that endure and plans that collapse. Our plans must align with heaven's blueprint. There is already a design for your life, carefully crafted by the one who sees the end from the beginning. To ignore that design is to build on shifting sand. To embrace it is to stand on a foundation that no storm can destroy. Think about a blueprint in the natural sense. A builder would never attempt to construct a house without one. The blueprint is the guide that ensures stability, safety, and purpose. Without it, walls may rise in the wrong place, foundations may be too shallow, and the structure may look impressive, but will not last. In the same way, life without alignment to heaven's plan may appear successful on the outside, but it will lack strength, stability, and eternal value. The tragedy is that many people spend years constructing lives on blueprints of their own making, only to find that the structure cannot withstand the storms of reality. When you plan without seeking heaven's direction, you are essentially saying, I know better than the one who designed me. Yet the truth is, you cannot see tomorrow, let alone eternity. Your perspective is limited, but heaven's perspective is eternal. That is why surrendering your plans is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is acknowledging that the one who made you also knows why he made you. And his plans are not random. They are purposeful, perfect, and eternal. This alignment does not mean abandoning all ambition or ignoring responsibility. Rather, it means laying every ambition before heaven and asking, is this part of the design you have for me? It means kneeling before planning. It means submitting the calendar, the career, the dreams, and the goals to a higher authority. When your plans are aligned with heaven's blueprint, they may not always be easy, but they will always be meaningful. The beauty of heaven's blueprint is that it weaves your story into something larger than yourself. You are not simply chasing personal gain, you are contributing to an eternal purpose. You are not building for a temporary tomorrow. You are building for an everlasting kingdom. That gives weight to your work and meaning to your sacrifices. It also gives peace in the midst of uncertainty. When storms come, you do not have to fear collapse because the foundation of your life rests on a design stronger than anything you could have imagined. Let me illustrate this with an example. A man had a passion for music. From childhood, he dreamed of fame and recognition. He poured his energy into becoming a celebrated performer, and eventually he reached his goal. Crowds cheered his name. His songs topped charts, and his lifestyle was the envy of many. Yet inside, he felt empty. The success he worked so hard for did not bring peace. One day, after a personal crisis, he began to pray sincerely, asking for direction beyond his own desires. Over time, he felt called to use his music not just for entertainment, but to inspire hope and truth. He shifted his focus, surrendering his platform to serve a higher purpose. His audience changed. The crowds were smaller and the fame faded. But the fulfillment he found was deeper than anything applause had ever given. He had aligned his gift with heaven's blueprint, and in doing so, discovered a success that could not be taken away. This example teaches us that not every good idea is a God idea. Sometimes the things we chase may bring us temporary gain, but leave us empty because they were never part of the eternal design. Alignment is not about asking heaven to bless what you have already decided. It is about asking heaven to reveal what was already written for your life. When you live that way, you find clarity, strength, and purpose that no setback can erase. So before you rush to plan tomorrow, pause today. Bend your knee, open your heart, and listen. Ask for heaven's strategy before you sketch your own. Because the truth is this: any life built apart from heaven's blueprint will eventually crack, but a life aligned with it will endure forever. Align your plans with the eternal design, and you will not only succeed for a season, you will succeed for eternity. Sacrifice is not something most people willingly choose. Our natural instinct is to avoid pain, to hold tightly to what we value, to cling to comfort and security. Yet life inevitably asks us to let go of things, and often those moments feel like losses. We give up opportunities, resources, time, or even relationships for the sake of what is right, for the sake of love, or for the sake of integrity. On the surface, it may look like we are losing ground, falling behind, or missing out. But here is the truth that changes everything. Eternity gives meaning to every sacrifice you make. What looks wasted in this world is never wasted in eternity. Every tear shed, every trial endured, every step of obedience taken at great personal cost is noticed, recorded, and redeemed by the eternal hand of God. In the temporary view of life, sacrifice can seem foolish. Why give away money you could spend on yourself? Why stand for integrity when compromise could bring success? Why invest hours in people who may never thank you? Why endure hardship when shortcuts are available? The world measures worth by immediate return. So if sacrifice does not produce instant results, it is dismissed as failure. But eternity sees differently. Eternity measures not by what you gained in the moment, but by what you stored up forever. The sacrifices that seem costly here are investments that will yield everlasting rewards there. Sacrifice also has the power to refine character. Every time you let go of something for the sake of righteousness, you are loosening your grip on what is temporary and tightening your grip on what is eternal. You are declaring by your actions that this world is not your home and that your true treasure is elsewhere. Eternity turns sacrifice into victory because it transforms what looks like weakness into lasting strength. This truth becomes even more powerful when we realize that nothing surrendered is ever wasted. Every moment of perseverance, every act of generosity, every choice to endure rather than give up is seen and valued. Eternity keeps records more accurate than any human ledger. The hours of quiet service that no one thanked you for, the prayers whispered in solitude that no one knew about, the sacrifices you made when nobody was watching. These are not forgotten. In eternity, they will shine as crowns, as testimonies to a life lived with heaven in view. Consider an example. A young mother lives in very modest circumstances. She has dreams for her life, dreams of travel, education, and personal success. But much of that is put aside because of her family's needs. She works tirelessly, sometimes taking on jobs that pay little but provide stability. She chooses to sacrifice her personal ambitions to ensure her children have a foundation of love, faith, and opportunity. To many around her, it looks as though she missed her chance at greatness. She doesn't have a degree hanging on her wall, a high-paying career, or recognition in society. Yet her daily sacrifices plant seeds in her children's lives, seeds of resilience, compassion, and faith. One child grows up to be a teacher who inspires hundreds of students. Another becomes a community leader who helps the disadvantaged, and another carries forward the values of integrity and love to the next generation. Her sacrifices, invisible to the world, echo into eternity. When her life ends, she will not step into eternity empty-handed. She will step into a harvest of eternal significance. Her sacrifices transformed into crowns of glory. This example illustrates how eternity reframes the story of sacrifice. What looks small here is great there. What feels like loss here is gain there. The world may never applaud, but heaven will. The tears you cry in the silence of your struggle are not ignored. They are collected, treasured, and one day transformed into joy. Sacrifice also connects us more deeply to the eternal story we are a part of. When you give up something for the sake of righteousness, you align yourself with the same path walked by countless others who understood that eternity outweighed temporary comfort. You join the legacy of those who endured trials, hardships, and even persecution because they knew eternity would redeem every sacrifice. You discover that you are not losing. You are investing in something that will never fade. So the next time you feel the weight of sacrifice, the time you give, the opportunities you release, the pain you endure, remember this truth. Eternity gives meaning to it all. Nothing surrendered for what is right will ever be wasted. One day, what you carried as a burden will be revealed as a crown. The sacrifices you make today may look like losses, but in eternity, they will shine with a glory that can never be diminished. That is why sacrifice is not defeat. It is eternal victory in disguise. So when you plan for tomorrow, don't do it with blind eyes, fixed only on the clock or the calendar. Do it with eyes lifted toward eternity. For the true measure of a life well lived is not how much you gained in tomorrow, but how much you invested in forever. My challenge to you is this: as you plan for your next step, don't forget your eternal destination. Tomorrow will pass, but eternity will last. And the greatest tragedy would be to prepare for tomorrow and miss forever.